Well, ladies and gentlemen, there we have it. That match ended 0-0. And yeah, that is obviously not the result Chelsea wanted. Coming out of that one, we're going to take a look at the Premier League table, because that to me is the most important thing coming out of this. We are now 2 games behind Liverpool, and we're currently 1 point off them. So assuming they'd want to win both, I'm recording this straight after the game, so I don't know what their result against Spurs is going to be. But assuming they go and win both of their games, they could be 7 points clear of us. So it's not looking great in terms of, keeping pace with Liverpool. Obviously, we could have gone above them if we'd have gone on to win the game. Instead, we just creep up closer a little bit for the time being with 1 point. And I mean, that was such a frustrating game. Like, I'm literally sat there trying not to fall asleep through most of it, because there wasn't any fluidity from Chelsea. There wasn't any from Everton. I mean, I've got my frustrations with Everton throughout all of that. Their fans, abysmal, calling for fouls when there was just nothing, which was so frustrating. I know they're just trying to get the ref on their side, get their team going, but wow, that was frustrating. You got the Everton players doing some very dangerous tackles out there today. 2 at least come to mind. You got Pickford's flying out one on Gusto, where he gets none of the ball and absolutely wipes him out in the penalty area, I might add. And Beto against Colwell, where he literally just jumps 2-footed off the ground and into him. So yeah, some very dangerous tackles all in there, which wasn't nice to see. It was quite a nasty game at times, but honestly, I think the weather conditions didn't help. You could see how windy it was there, and I think that was playing a huge part in the team just not being able to get much fluidity. You try and play a diagonal ball across the pitch, and it ends up going backwards and out for a corner or something like that. It was just ridiculous. And we were struggling so much to get any real movement going. And I think, yeah, it's a disappointing result. It could have been worse. Sanchez did have to make a couple, maybe one decent save. And that block late on by Tosin Adarabioyo, what a block that was. He comes flying back across goal and gets his leg in the way, and in a strong challenge as well. It's not just like he just gets a little nick on it. He absolutely, puts his foot through it and manages to block it and take the player out at the same time, so it made sure that he is not getting a second chance at that. So that was really nice to see. Tosin really taken to the role nicely while Wesley Fofana is out. Let's talk about Nicholas Jackson now, because he did have a few chances early on, and I had an awful feeling they were going to come back to haunt us. In my head, I was thinking, right, Everton are going to go and score off like a corner, a headed goal, classic Everton. But Jackson had the early chance where Palmer makes a nice run through, crosses it into him. It's a bit behind him, but he gets a great shot off in terms of the amount of power he gets behind it, and it's directed right between Pickford's legs. And I thought, in my head, that's the perfect shot, right? Because it's going to go between his legs, and he can't really adjust in time. But Pickford with some really quick feet there and manages to adjust really well. So that one goes, and you think, okay, we're getting good chances. They'll keep coming. And then you get Jackson, who I didn't quite see what happened. There was a lot going on, but it looked like he got a header at the back post. After sort of everyone misses it, he gets a quick little flick, and it comes off the post from 2 yards out. And that, for me, is the bigger chance where, I've got no problems with Jackson. I love him as a striker. I'd happily keep probably just him as our striker going forward. But I do think if you had, a top-tier striker, someone that is 28 years old, in his prime, been doing it in the Champions League for season on season, I think they score that. But Jackson isn't there, and we know that. And personally, I'm accepting of it. I know he's going to miss the odd chance here and there. Every striker in the world does. But that, to me, was the chance that you think, if that goes in, Everton can't play their terrorist football where they just sat back, so many players behind the ball, and so many players just load in the box where it's like, okay, crosses are no longer an option. Fair enough. You try to play through them, and it's just little fouls here and there to break up the play, or, they manage just to have so many bodies around you that you can't play football, and then they just go and hoof it up to Calvert-Lewin, or in the end, Beto, and scream for a foul while our player just heads the ball off away from them. That was pretty much the game plan, and it sucked to play against, but they'll be happy with that. They're playing a team that's currently title contenders, and they've got a point out of it, so fair play to them. I don't like the football. I really dislike it, but it worked for them. They got a point, so you've got to give them their credit there. In terms of the player ratings, I think that we'll take a look at what SofaScore's got them rated as, because I looked at it earlier and I didn't think it, I thought it was a bit inaccurate. You've got Nicholas Jackson on a 6.3. I think that's fair. Didn't really do all that much. Had a pretty quiet game. Pedro Neto on a 6.7. Again, sort of was just one of them players that got hampered by all the fouls that kept happening. Sancho on a 7.19. I think that's pretty fair. He was one of our more creative players, but again, just struggled to get that link up because there's so many bodies back for Everton. Cole Palmer on a 7.89. I think that is so generous. That, in my opinion, was one of the worst Cole Palmer performances. Please let me know in the comments if I'm wrong there. But personally, Cole Palmer in that game was pretty awful. We'll take a look at some of his stats. Realistically, you're looking at 80% pass accuracy, not awful. 1 accurate cross out of 7 attempts. 1 big chance created, which is probably the cross into Jackson. 1 shot off target. 3 successful dribbles from 5 attempts. It was really quite a poor game for him, but I think those ratings are really, really generous. And then Enzo Fernandez, who got man of the match on SofaScore, 8.0. I think that's fair. He kept things ticking on pretty nicely. Had a little shot or two here and there, but nothing major. 7.6 for Caicedo, pretty decent. Disasi on a 7.2, which I thought was surprising. I didn't think he had his best game, but I think that's more because he is obviously a lot more defensively minded. Playing as a fullback, he's not going to be the guy to run forward, get a cross in, and overlap, things like that. So I think a 7.2 isn't too far off. I probably would have given him a little less. Tosin Adarabioyo on a 7.8, really good for me. Great performance from him. Levi Colwill, 6.9. I think that's maybe a little harsh on him. I suppose he didn't have his most stellar performance, but he did keep a clean sheet in the end, so I think that's a little harsh. Malo Gusto, 7.1. I actually thought he was quite poor today. Obviously playing at left back, so you give him a little bit of leeway there, but all in all, didn't really, impact the game much. Wasn't all that effective in midfield. Wasn't great, helping out Sancho on the left wing, so a little iffy there. And then Sanchez on a 7.7. I think that's fair. He had a couple of pretty much just long shots to save. 1 good chance from, I think it was Harrison, who was bearing down the right wing for them and got into the box. Had a decent shot, but Sanchez with a big save. So that was a really good performance from Sanchez for me. And as I always say, if you can keep it up, Sanchez could be a top keeper and could be our keeper for the long term. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen. He will have a couple of good games and then a stinker. So not too bad of a result in the end. But we go, we move on. I think that's just the odd game where it's like, Brentford, I think, was a game I was probably not expecting to win because of our history there and how great of a goal-scoring team they were. But we managed to. Everton is another one of them for me where it's like, not too confident in going and steamrolling over in Everton. But looking ahead at our fixtures, our good fixtures continue for a little bit longer. We've got Fulham, a good team in good form at the moment, but should be beating them. Ipswich, Crystal Palace, then we've got Morecambe in the Cup, and then we've got Bournemouth, we've got Wolves, and then Man City, which maybe these days isn't that hard of a fixture, but the next month or so does look really strong for us still. So I don't think this is, panic stations. We finally lost our win streak and it's all crumbling down. I don't think that's the case, guys. I think we'll be okay. Just a little bit of a bump in the road against a team that quite often causes bumps in the road. I mean, they beat or draw against Arsenal last week? I think it was a draw. So, they are very much a team that can just nick the odd point against top teams, and sometimes you just got to live with that. But that's going to be the end of the video. If you did enjoy, please be sure to leave a thumbs up on it, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.